The Regatta Mystery is a collection of short stories never published in the UK, only published in the US in 1939. And it's different from other Christie short stories in that it's quite a mixed bag. We've got stories featuring Parker Pyne. We have stories featuring Hercule Poirot. We have one story featuring Miss Marple. And we also have a supernatural-themed short story. All right, the first story, let's start with Parker Pyne. First story is The Regatta Mystery, the title story. It involves the theft of a large uncut diamond that is being passed around a table one evening at dinner in a hotel. And there's only one way that it could have been taken out of the room, apparently, and that's when a young man at the table went to a window, opened it, threw a coin down to a passing newspaperman to get a newspaper, and got the newspaper. So naturally, the suspicion is thrown on him. He denies his guilt or culpability in the theft, and Parker Pyne is there to help him out. The next story with Parker Pyne is The Problem at Pollensa Bay, and this really harkens back to Parker Pyne Investigates, to the short stories in that collection. We have a woman who's very unhappy with her son's choice of girlfriend, and Parker Pyne steps in to help out with the situation, to make everything happy. He utilizes a woman who you'll remember from Parker Pyne Investigates, a woman named Madeline DeSara, and she's sort of the femme fatale that he uses in stories where he needs someone to kind of be the other woman in order to either drive a husband back to his wife or make a son's choice of girlfriend seem much more palatable than before. And so both of the Parker Pyne stories are fairly light fare. There's only one Miss Marple story in this collection. It's called Miss Marple Tells a Story. It's interesting for a couple of reasons. First, it shares a similarity to the short stories that we see in the 13 Problems or the Tuesday Club Murders. And it's also interesting because the entire story is narrated by Miss Marple. She's talking to her nephew, Raymond West, and his wife, Joan. She's called Joan in this story. You'll remember from 13 Problems, her name is Joyce Lempier, and they get married, and somehow her name changes. But this story involves the murder of a woman in her bedroom at a hotel when her husband is working in the next room, and the only two people to have had contact or access to the room were a chambermaid at the hotel and the husband. And this, the plot really turns on the fact that people are not very observant when it comes to menial help and servants, maids, chambermaids. And the main idea is that people are not as observant as they probably should be, that they just take things for granted. Now, before we talk about the Poirot short stories in this collection, which happen to be the strongest stories, let's talk about In a Glass Darkly, which is this short story that happens to be more related to the supernatural and is not connected with any recurring character. The title, In a Glass Darkly, is taken from the words of the Apostle Paul, who talks about how in this life we only see things as kind of in part. We don't see the whole picture. You might say, like C.S. Lewis says, we kind of live in shadowlands. We don't see the real picture, or what it will be. And the story involves a man who sees a vision of the future in a mirror, and it's a man strangling the woman he loves, and he's a bit haunted by this vision. Now, there are 5 Poirot stories. We have The Mystery of the Baghdad Chest, which is going to appear later on as The Mystery of the Spanish Chest in UK publications. We have How Does Your Garden Grow, which of course is the title's taken from the nursery rhyme about Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. We have Yellow Iris, The Dream, and Problem at Sea. Now, the story, Mystery of the Baghdad Chest, is the only story in the Poirot collection in this short story collection that has Hastings as the narrator. And How Does Your Garden Grow, which is kind of, it opens similar to Dumb Witness, where an old woman sends a letter to Poirot and he arrives too late to save her. She's already dead. And in this one, it's interesting because we have Miss Lemon. Miss Lemon, you'll remember from Parker Pyne Investigates. She was his super efficient secretary who seemingly has no interest in life beyond coming up with the perfect filing system. She now works for Poirot and plays, I think, a more significant role in Poirot's stories and novels. Particularly, we'll see that in Hickory Dickory Dock, in a mystery that involves her sister. So, and then Yellow Iris is a really good story about kind of a murder in retrospect. It shares an affiliation with Sparkling Cyanide, with someone remembering a death from previous years and bringing back everyone who was present at the death and trying to solve the murder. The final Poirot story is also the final story in the collection. It's called Problem at Sea, and I think it's probably the best story in the collection. And it involves a trip that Poirot is on in Alexandria. He mentions during this time that he has never been to Egypt before, so we can safely assume that this short story was probably written before Death on the Nile, or at least it takes place before Death on the Nile. And this involves the murder of a woman in her locked room on a ship while her husband is off gallivanting with some young ladies in Alexandria. Very interesting story with a really clever twist to the plot. It's also famous for having Poirot's final line, "I do not approve of murder," which I think he'll say in subsequent collections. Very interesting story. Overall, this kind of hodgepodge collection of stories, they're interesting stories. Only a couple of them really truly captured my interest. The others are a little bit tame for Christie, and it's really hard, I think, for Christie to develop some of the great plot structures that happen in her novels in these short stories. It's hard when you only have 20 pages. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.